Posted by you/mom-2cats. In an effort to have a non-IDA post, here is a little Vender-zilla story. Way back in the day, pre-cell phone, pre-Google, I attended the wedding of a school friend. It was a lovely, casual affair, although with a couple hundred people. All outside in the fall, with the ceremony on the shore and lawn games, a band, and an open bar, even during the ceremony. From prior conversations with a bridesmaid and the groom's mom, because I have allergies and wanted to know if I'd be able to eat during this all-day event, I learned a local restaurant was catering, and their menu was safe for me, so I was happy. The plan was to have the restaurant bring in all the food just before dinner, set it up as 2 buffet lines in a large barn/event space, and put the refills in some insulated coolers under the tablecloth so everything would stay warm. Then the restaurant staff would leave, and the wedding party would pack things up. Then I started to hear some vague complaints from the groom. The restaurant was moving all of a sudden and hadn't responded to calls for a month. When they did call, they kept getting the details wrong. Then they needed a bunch of things resent, which is where I came in, with free access to a fax machine and copier, since the bride and groom were starting to think it was a bad idea to just drop things off at the restaurant without copies and receipts. At a certain point, I heard nothing else about it and assumed everything had been straightened out. Then the big day arrived. I was happy for my friends, and it was a fun day of drinking, games, and catching up. But eventually my inner introvert pipped up and said enough. So I headed off towards the barn, figuring I'd check out the seating situation and hide in a corner for a bit. When I arrived after a short walk up a hill, which blocked the view from the main revelry, I saw a van with the restaurant's name on it just pulling out of the drive. Strange, I thought. It's a little early to be all set up for dinner, but maybe the plans changed. Except when I got closer, I noticed a mountain of aluminum trays and containers just piled up on bales of hay near the entrance to the barn. At that point, little alarm bells started going off. The inner alarm went full in klaxon when I noticed there was a cat climbing down the hay bales towards what I suspected was our dinner. Peeked in the barn to find it empty except for one dude I didn't recognize. I hoped he was in charge of something food related, but nope. He was the bride's cousin's date, who was also hiding from people. He agreed to protect the food from the barn cat while I dashed off to find the groom's mom, who I had seen recently and knew well. After a quick search, I found her and discovered that the plan had not changed. The restaurant was still supposed to arrive in an hour and set up dinner. But we were not imagining that the mountain of trays and containers did indeed contain dinner, or most of it. I understand some dishes never arrived. So, now there were 2 problems. 1, dinner would have to be essentially now, since there was no way to keep the food warm for another hour plus in the barn, except the wedding party had snuck off to take some photos before dinner and weren't expected back for almost an hour, and 2, the buffet still needed set up, from putting out tablecloths, plates, and utensils, to setting up chafing dishes and coolers, to actually setting out the food, which was in unlabeled containers. The result, the groom's lovely mother ended up dashing through several fields searching for the wedding party so there could be an emergency change of schedule, and I ended up grabbing the nearest 6 people I knew, most of whom worked in restaurants at the time, plus the poor bride's cousin's date, to help with an emergency catering setup. Dinner was saved. The aftermath, the bride and groom took the restaurant owner to small claims court for completely stuffing up their contract. The restaurant counterclaimed for the cost of a party they turned down to deliver food to the wedding. What? Crazy. It turns out the restaurant double-booked themselves and their small staff was insufficient for both a wedding setup and full service at a corporate party, so they picked the corporate party, which they called obviously more important in court. The bride and groom recouped almost all the catering expenses. The restaurant moved again twice more than I know of before going out of business a year or 2 later. TLDR, catering stuffs up contract, fails to deliver on time or set up, loses money in court. Now on to some comments. Posted by Oh What Is The Point? Thank you for the non/reposted, non-AITA content that was also a very satisfying read. So glad the couple sued them and won. And also, so glad that restaurant fell victim to their terrible management and lack of business acumen. But was the food good at least? OP responded with, I always thought it was pretty good in the restaurant, but it was a smallish town. A couple of decades later, I think it was more meh. The catering was a little less impressive, but it wasn't bad, and it was probably one of the better options available without bringing in a real caterer from the city. Posted by Scout Bandit. Wow, thanks for the story. It sounds like you saved the meal, and in the long run the couple got it for free. That doesn't excuse bad business practices though. Rude and tacky of the restaurant to prioritize a corporate party and then say so in court. The corporation will give us future business and these people probably won't. Who are we going to ultimately make more money from? Dropping off the food and sneaking away like that? How did they think they could get away with it and not at least be asked for a partial refund? I'm glad the couple prevailed in court. OP responded with, before it went to court, I believe they tried to tell the bride that they only agreed to deliver sometime before dinner, but she had all the copies of documents, notes, and the contract. So that didn't work out for them. Whether the restaurant actually lost all their documents and believed that was the agreement or they just came up with that story is anyone's guess at this point, although they did not try to argue a misunderstanding in small claims court, so shrug. Scout Bandit responded with, a rip-off artist's worst nightmare. A client who remembers every conversation and saves every email and written document. Good for her. Posted by Roughhead5670. Wow, I'm glad the bride and groom were able to get their money back from the company. I do have one question though. Are they still married? OP responded with, I don't know if they are. We were all real young and they were getting married because the bride was about to enlist. I mainly knew the groom and his family through church, but I've moved away and left the church. The last time I heard anything about them was probably 10 or 12 years ago, and they were still married then, so they at least made it at least 10 years. Now on to the last story. Posted by u/unusual_squash9119. AITA for telling my son that if he can't help me then he can pay for his own stuff? I am a mother of 5.5, 46F. I am 5 months pregnant. I have twin girls who I'll call Lisa and Sophia, 10F, my youngest boy, Joshua, 17M, my baby girl, Emily who is 1, and my oldest son, Danny, 21M. We were on a trip to Hawaii a few weeks ago. My husband didn't come because of an unexpected work emergency, but he told us to have fun. My twins cried, a lot, so my son Joshua and I comforted them, but Danny stood doing nothing. We had so many fun things planned to do with their father, but since he couldn't come, we didn't end up doing much, but whatever we did, except eat, Danny was absent for it. Like for example, going to the beach, banana boats, luau's, and watching his younger sisters when they just wanted to go to the pool. He'd stay in his room on his phone, chatting with his friends. The next week of vacation I was stressed with Danny. I hated having to put most of the work on Josh because he wanted to have fun too, and my daughter's helping with the baby. I called him down to help, but he said he wanted to relax and chill. When we literally came here to relax, chill, and have fun, though we weren't having lots of fun with less help, a crying baby, 2 10-year-olds who wanted to go to the pool but had to do what I had capability of doing while carrying, and my other son who wanted to get away from his sisters for at least an hour. It was a mess. I shouted at him, if you can't step up and help the woman who gave birth to you, lets you live in her house rent-free, while giving you a job, whose money you just spend on silly games instead of getting an apartment, then you can get out of my house and pay for your own stuff. He looked shocked and left, and just about an hour after, my SIL and my in-laws called, asking me why I'd shout at my son when he did nothing. I told them, yeah, he's been doing nothing except eating and chatting in his room with his silly friends, instead of helping his mother and siblings. And hung up. When we got back from our vacation, my husband yelled at our son for not helping, and sent him up to his room. Lots of our family are on my side, but my in-laws think I was in the wrong, so AITA? Edit, I should have added more details to avoid confusion. Danny does minimal work, I am not that type of parent. He co-parents, edit, babysits. I realized this was making people even more confused, all day for 1 or twice a month when his dad and I want to have some time alone. Josh also steps up as frequently as Danny too. Danny does also have a job I gave him, but he is an introvert, stays in his room all day, every day when he doesn't have work, which is only 2 or 3 times a week, only gets out to eat or go out to parties to hang out with friends. Other than that, I expect nothing less from him than him keeping up good work in his job, and helping out every once in a while with his sisters, just as Josh does, but his dad and I do on a daily. Mostly weekends because of school. Now on to some comments. Posted by FunnyGum0_0. It was your choice to give birth to 5 kids. Not Danny's. And you gave birth to 5 kids, not 1 kid and 4 babysitters. Put most of the work on Josh. My daughter's helping with the baby. And you still need Danny? What exactly are you doing in this story? Except for being pregnant. Again. YDA. Edit. To all the people saying, Danny is 21, he needs to pull some weight in this family. Literally. Reread. My comment. It was not Danny's choice to have enough kids to create a whole volleyball team. The only weight Danny needs to pull here is get a job and move away from this family that treats him like a babysitter. I mean 5 kids going to Hawaii, with the 6th kid, setter? Incoming and the father conveniently avoiding the trip? That sounds like a school trip where you're a teacher, it sure doesn't sound like a vacation. Edit 2, thank you all so much for all the awards and upvotes. Geode25 responded with, come on dude, don't say that. Op didn't come here to hear about how neglectful she is and how much she's parentifying her children and using them for babysitting/s. Dude, she fed them and let them live for free under her roof. They must serve her open factory uterus. Venny_VD_Dixie responded with, sure, it was her choice to have 5 kids. Danny is an adult now. He's 21, so if he wants a free vacation with his family he better be prepared to pitch in and act like a member of said family. Nobody is entitled to a free, no strings attached trip to Hawaii. He's a grown man. If he wants to go to Hawaii and chill alone, he should pay for his own trip instead of leeching off his parents. Bandit Koala _2.0. In her edit she says, I'm not that parent, he co-parents. WTAF. Yes, Op, you are that freaking parent. Stop having more children and actually look after the ones you have. You're parentifying your eldest. In case it's not obvious, YDA. Also, the 10-year-old twins were crying a lot? WTF? That's not normal for 10-year-olds in Hawaii to be crying so much even if they do miss their dad. Something smells fishy here. Op, I think you're a shite parent or a lazy one at the very least. Apparently Josh, OP's 17M child, has responded with this post. Not sure if this is really him, but here's the post. Posted by useful_car_7421. You're really funny, like so funny, ha. I'm only posting this because I've been at Nana's for the past few weeks after this vacation. Which was not a vacation at all, not because of Danny but because of you. Are you the one always telling us that lies always catch up to you in the worst of times? Well, this is one of them. You don't just put my brother to babysit for 2 days every few months or whatever. It's every freaking day. No matter what he is going on. Or me for a fact, going out with my friends? No honey, you have to take care of your sisters, plan it another week, then that week you and your husband want to go out on a date and me and my brother are left taking care of your other offsprings. Now don't get me wrong. I love my sisters to death, but the lack of attention they get from you is rubbing off on me. They want to play Barbies more often with me or my brother, while you and your husband work or go out. My birthday's next week, so I'll be moving to Nana's the day after. So glad I'm turning 18. Oh, you also forgot to mention that the only reason your older son is still living with you in that monstrosity of a house is because he is autistic. You of all people should have mentioned that. Also, Dad didn't have a work emergency. He had an emergency with Grace. GTH. Investing responded with, bruh. If this is real, I've been here. I'm so sorry for you. I wish I was as brave as you to say what you needed to say. I hope Op sees it amongst the chaos. I was the autistic one. But I was forced to mask to the point where I know I have PTSD-induced masking symptoms and diagnosis. As a 34-year-old, my youngest brother and older sister still live with me. I don't know how to be okay not parenting them, and I go into hyperventilating when I attempt to separate myself. I've considered buying a second property for just me and my wife, but only one of my siblings can afford to help cover their share of rent, and I wouldn't want to burden them with a renter or the other's portion of rent. I'm not saying any of this get pity or empathy, but to help you see what happens when you do take on that parental role. It's not for you, the child. Learn from my inability to be like you. Get out. Stay out. Be okay saying no. Don't let them manipulate you into it anymore. Best of luck at Nana's. You're a beautiful soul. And I'm sorry for Danny. Give him a huge hug for me. He can get out too. My nephew is 19 with mental capacity of a 7-year-old. He is autistic as well. He has learned to cook for himself, do his own laundry and more. I hope if he can do it, Danny can too. Much love sent your way.